Welcome to the History Story Podcast. You know we love a good mystery, right? Well, buckle up because today we're taking a historic road trip into one of aviation history's most baffling cases, the disappearance of Frederick Valentich.
It's not your average missing person story. This one has it all. Strange lights, those chilling radio transmissions, and then just nothing. A young pilot and his plane just gone.
Vanished. Poof. It's October 21st, 1978, over the Bass Strait. Not exactly known for being a calm, relaxing stretch of water, is it? Between mainland Australia and Tasmania. And that's where we're headed on this historic road trip to try and unpack what happened to Valentich.
We've got some history books and uncovered sources here laying out all the details. We've got a young pilot, relatively inexperienced, named Frederick Valentich. He's flying a Cessna 182L, registration VH-DSJ, a routine flight to King Island that, well, takes a very dark turn.
That's right, routine flight, you said it. So picture this. The sun is setting over the Bass Strait. Valentich is in his Cessna. He makes a routine radio call. And that, folks, is where our strange journey begins.
Yeah, this is where things start to get a little spooky.
Okay, so October 21st, 1978, sun setting. Bass Strait, let's meet our pilot. 20 years old, Frederick Valentich, about 150 hours of flight time. Not a ton, right?
Not a seasoned veteran by any means.
Yeah.
He's flying a Cessna 182L, his flight plan. Pretty simple. Moorabbin Airport near Melbourne to King Island, about 125 nautical miles. Think Philadelphia to New York City.
Road trip, but by air, except way spookier.
And the reason for the trip? Bit of a mystery, actually. Some sources say picking up friends, others crayfish. It has a layer of, I don't know, the ordinary to something that becomes anything but.
Right. It's like picking up dinner, then poof. So he's alone in his Cessna, heading into the twilight, and then things take a turn. 7:06 p.m. local time. He contacts Melbourne Air Traffic Control.
A routine call at first. He's asking about traffic, standard procedure, anything below 5,000 feet. The controller, Steve Roby, comes back. Nope, all clear. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay, so far so good. Right. Pilot, doing pilot things. But then, minutes later, Valentich is back on the radio. And this time, it's different. He's reporting a large, unidentified aircraft.
This is where it gets interesting. He describes 4 bright landing lights, says it passed about 1,000 feet above him, and he explicitly states, I cannot identify it.
That sends chills down my spine, just hearing that. A pilot looking at something in the sky, and they can't tell what it is.
It's unsettling, isn't it? Because this is his job, right? He's supposed to know what's up there.
Yeah.
So the fact that he can't identify it, that's a red flag. What do you make of that?
Big red flag. Like flashing siren red flag. And it gets worse. Minutes later, you can hear the tension in his voice. He says this object, whatever it is approaching him from the east. And get this, he says it's playing some sort of game, flying over him multiple times at high speed.
That phrase, playing some sort of game, it suggests something intelligent, something deliberate. It's not just random movement. It's like, this thing is toying with him.
Exactly. It gives me goosebumps. And then the transmission cuts out for a second. He comes back and says, it seems to me that he's playing some sort of game. He's flying over me 2-3 times at speeds I could not identify. And then the sentence that chills me to the bone, it is not an aircraft.
Right. That pause, that silence before he says it.
Yeah.
Like he's struggling to find the words. Because what he's seeing, it defies explanation. And then the description starts. He says, it's got a long shape. Cannot identify more than that. It's coming for me right now. It seems to be stationary. What I'm doing right now is orbiting, and the thing is just orbiting on top of me also.
Orbiting, like circling each other in the sky.
Yeah, and then he adds, it's got a green light and sort of metallic light. It's all shiny on the outside.
Metallic, shiny green light. This is not your average Cessna, folks. And then comes the final transmission, 7:12 p.m. Brace yourselves.
Melbourne, that strange aircraft is hovering on top of me again. Open microphone for 2 seconds. It is hovering, and it's not an aircraft. And then, 17 seconds of. It's hard to describe. The transcript says metallic scraping sounds.
And then, silence. Nothing. What do you think those sounds were?
It's the biggest question, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
People have analyzed those 17 seconds over and over. Metallic scraping, some say it's the plane breaking up, others say it's something else, something we can't explain.
And here's the kicker. Valentich, the Cessna, gone. Vanished. Expensive searches, air and sea, nothing. No wreckage, no oil slick, no life raft, nothing.
It's like they just disappeared.
Yeah.
Into thin air. And that's what makes this case so compelling. We have this radio transcript, this chilling account of what happened,
Yeah.
and then nothing. It's a mystery wrapped in an enigma.
A void. Exactly. And to add another layer to this whole thing, we've got to remember the time period. Late 1970s, UFO fever was gripping the world. Close Encounters of the Third Kind had just come out.
Right. UFO sightings were popping up everywhere. So when Valentich disappeared, and with that radio transcript, well, people's imaginations ran wild.
It's hard not to connect the dots, isn't it? Especially with his description of the object.
Right. And the official investigation, well, let's just say it didn't exactly provide closure. The Australian Department of Transport, they looked into it. They couldn't deny the strangeness of the radio calls, but their final report, pilot disorientation, maybe a graveyard spiral where a pilot loses their bearings. But that doesn't explain the object, does it?
Doesn't explain the metallic, shiny, green light-having, orbiting object. Not at all. And of course, when the official explanation falls short, that's when the theories start flying.
Oh, yeah. Some people claimed a government cover-up. They said the authorities knew more than they were letting on. Maybe it was some secret project. And then, of course, you have the skeptic.
The skeptics are always there, right? Like, ready to debunk.
They had a field day with this one. They said, maybe he just got disoriented, saw some reflections on the water, mistook them for another craft, or maybe he saw Venus or Jupiter or Mars. Happens all the time.
Yeah, but planets don't usually play tag with Cessnas. And there were theories about suicide, or maybe he faked his own death, but no evidence for any of that.
Right. No sign of him, no motive, no indication he was planning something like that. It's like when we can't explain something, we default to these more familiar but less likely scenarios. And you know what? The Valentich case is still a big deal today. It's not just some forgotten blip on the radar. It's a landmark case in ufology.
So let's dig into those theories, the ones that have stuck around. First up, the one the authorities went with, pilot disorientation. What are we talking about here?
Okay, imagine you're flying over water at dusk. It's getting dark, the horizon is blurry, you lose your sense of up and down. It can happen, especially to less experienced pilots. Maybe Valentich saw his own plane's lights reflected on the water, or lights from a boat, and thought it was another craft above him. And that scraping sound, maybe it was the plane breaking up on impact?
Plausible, except those details he gave, the maneuvering, the green light, the metallic, doesn't quite fit, does it?
It's a tough sell. Disorientation usually leads to confusion, panic, not these detailed descriptions. Then there's the idea that maybe he saw another plane, a meteor, even a bright planet. Again, plausible on the surface. But
planets don't play chicken with aircraft. And an experienced pilot should be able to tell the difference between a star and a Boeing 747.
Exactly. So those explanations, they kind of fall apart when you look at the specifics. And then we get to the more out there theories. Staged disappearance, suicide. Always on the table in these cases, right?
But the evidence just isn't there. No reason to believe he'd want to disappear, no sign he was planning it, suicide. Again, no note, no indication he was struggling.
Which brings us to the juicier theories. Secret military aircraft. Think about it. Cold War era, remote location. Perfect for testing experimental tech. Maybe Valentich stumbled across something he wasn't supposed to see. Explains the unusual appearance, the lack of wreckage.
Government hush-hush, right. Sweep it all under the rug.
It's definitely a possibility. And then, of course, we have the UFO theory, the big one.
The one everyone wants to hear about. Alien encounter, right?
Well, it's hard to ignore when you look at Valentich's words. It's not an aircraft. That description of the object, the way it was moving, some people believe he encountered a non-human craft, described it accurately, and then, well, who knows? Maybe he was abducted, maybe a plane was disabled, maybe something else entirely.
And adding fuel to that fire, Valentich himself was reportedly interested in UFOs. So he's already primed to see something unusual, right?
It's a double-edged sword. Some people say it makes him more likely to misinterpret things. Others say it means he knows what he's talking about. He can tell the difference between a weather balloon and something else entirely.
It's fascinating and frustrating because we have all these pieces, all these clues, but no solution, no definitive answer.
Exactly. Pilot disorientation, maybe, but it doesn't explain everything. UFOs. Possible, but where's the proof? The Valentich case remains a mystery. And that's why decades later, people are still talking about it.
Absolutely. It's become a cornerstone of UFO lore, hasn't it? That radio transcript, the lack of any explanation. It's fuel for the imagination.
And it's become a part of Australian folklore, too. This story of young pilot, a routine flight, and then vanishing into the unknown. It makes you think twice about what's really out there, doesn't it?
Makes you want to keep your eyes on the sky. It's even inspired artists, musicians, you name it. There's a song called Starseeker, Valentich, by an Australian band called The Humans. Proof that this story has really captured people's imaginations.
It has. And what's interesting is, unlike a lot of mysteries, This one hasn't faded away. It hasn't been solved. There hasn't been some new evidence that changes everything. It remains open, unsolved, a question mark hanging over aviation history.
Okay, so before we wrap up, let's dive into some of the finer details, the things that make this case even more intriguing. We know Valentich was young, not a ton of flying experience. He had tried to join the RAAF, the Royal Australian Air Force, but got rejected twice.
And he was, as we said, fascinated by UFOs, which of course makes his story all the more, well, you know.
Exactly. And if you go back and listen to that radio transcript, it's not just the words. You can hear the change in his voice, the confusion, the rising fear, the urgency, and those final sounds. Metallic scraping. Just chillin'.
And there were other people who reported strange things that night. People on the ground seeing lights over the Bass Strait. Of course, those reports came after Valentich disappeared, so it's hard to know what to make of them.
People see things, right? Especially when they're looking for them.
Exactly. And then there's that famous photo, the Cape Otway photo, taken by a plumber about 20 minutes before Valentich's last transmission. It seems to show an object coming out of the water. Could it be the object?
Well, probably not. Experts have looked at the photo, and most of them agree. It's probably just a trick of the light, or maybe an object closer to the camera, but it's still a part of the Valentich legend.
Another piece of the puzzle that doesn't quite fit. And speaking of things that don't fit, Valentich mentioned engine trouble earlier in the flight, but then he said it was fine. So was it engine failure or something else? We'll probably never know.
And the last detail, the one that always gets me. His plane had an ELT, an emergency locator transmitter. It's supposed to go off if the plane crashes, but nothing, no signal.
Which means, well, a few possibilities. Maybe it malfunctioned. Maybe the impact was so gentle it didn't trigger, or maybe the plane didn't crash in the way we think of a plane crashing.
Maybe it just vanished, like it was never there.
So where does that leave us? We've got a pilot, a plane, a mysterious object, a chilling radio call, and then nothing. A lot of questions and no real answers. Pilot error. UFO encounter. Something else entirely. We're left with possibilities, theories, and a healthy dose of, well, wonder, I guess.
Wonder, and maybe a little bit of fear. It makes you realize how much we don't know about our own world, about what might be out there. What stood out to you the most going through all of this?
For me, it's the lack of wreckage. Planes crash, they leave debris, but in this case, nothing. It's like the plane just ceased to exist. And that's what makes this case so unique, so haunting.
For me, it's the combination of the ordinary and the extraordinary. A young pilot, a routine flight, and then this. It's a reminder that the line between the mundane and the unexplained is maybe thinner than we think. And it makes you wonder, what else is out there? What else are we missing?
Good questions.
Yeah.
Questions we might never have the answers to. But for those of you listening who want to go down the rabbit hole, there's plenty to explore. You can find the official accident report online, listen to the radio transcript yourself. There are documentaries, books, websites dedicated to this case. Dig in, see what you make of it.
And here's something to think about. In this world of information overload, where we're used to having answers at our fingertips, what does it mean when something like this happens? Something with no explanation, no closure. What does it tell us about the limits of our knowledge, about the mysteries that still exist in our world? The mystery of Frederick Valentich isn't just about a missing pilot and a plane. It's about the unknown, the unexplained, and the limits of what we can know. Thanks for joining us on this historic road trip.
Until next time, keep looking up.
And maybe keep the lights on. You never know what might be out there.